So thank you. I first of all would like to welcome my guests, and what I'd like to do is maybe split our time between our two films. And Tiffany, would you like to start us off and just maybe introduce yourself in your own words, introduce your journey through your filmmaking career? I'd also like to know what else you're kind of currently working on, what's in the pipeline. Tiffany, if you wouldn't mind taking it away. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. It's so nice to be here. It's very early over here on the West Coast. I'm a West Coast girl now, so many, many hours behind you all. But so happy to be here. Thank you so much. And we're so excited that this is our international premiere for the film. And, releasing things in the age of the pandemic is a challenge, but also it's opened up so many cool, creative possibilities for thinking to allow us to just like zoom in and have a chat and have a coffee together and then keep on going with our day, and all of these things that we didn't think of as being possible, 5 years ago are suddenly, possible. So I'm grateful for that aspect of where we're at right now in film release history, climate. So thank you. My name is Tiffany Ayalik. I am Inuit. I am Inuk from the Qipisa region in Nunavut, in Western Nunavut, right on the Arctic Ocean, in a place that we've appropriated a name in English called Coronation Gulf, but that's not what we call it. So the film that I directed, along with co-director Kylik Kisoun Taylor, who is featured in the film, is Okpik, Little Village in the Arctic. And the film really was a product of COVID hitting the North. And Kylik and I had worked together on a project several years ago with a previous show that I hosted called Wild Kitchen. So my producing partner, Caroline Cox, and I, we worked together on this show that she created that I hosted, where I got to just like travel around different parts of the Northwest Territories in Canada and meet really cool people who were somehow very closely connected to food, were either hunting or fishing or harvesting or growing their own food or foraging. So I had the best job ever. I just got to travel around and meet like cool people who love nature, who harvest their own food, and we'd cook a meal together, and we'd learn about, the ecosystem that they were in the North, because the North is such a large many different sort of ecological zones in the Northwest Territories. And so we just got to like go mushroom picking and go fishing and hunting. And we did an episode with Kylik, who is in the film. And we hit it off really great. The three of us, we all became friends, and we really admired what he was doing in the Northwest Territories and in Inuvik, in his home community. And, he ran a tourism business, and his whole thing was bringing people to his homeland to experience the North in a really authentic, meaningful way. Come with him and his family, go berry picking, go hunting, watch a harvest, go moose hunting, and really provide like a one of a kind experience where people got to like have a really personal experience, and not just like, if you go to your left, you'll see the mountains, and you go to your right, you'll see, like it was a very different tourist experience. And I think one that was really centered around empathy building, and like these are how my people live. This is how they used to live. And so he was doing just like really cool work through the vehicle of tourism, which was awesome. And then, flash forward to, 2019, when the world went a little wonky. And basically he saw in basically 24 hours, his entire business go completely under, because borders were closed, no travel was happening. All of his international clients weren't, able to come and be booked like they had been, months and months in advance. And so, to stay afloat, Kylik had to basically liquidate his whole business. And then, we were checking in on him and talking with him. And, he was saying, I've kind of got two choices. I can either stay in town in Inuvik, get an office job at something that I absolutely hate, to be able to afford to live in Inuvik because the cost of living is so high. It's a very remote community. Or I can take my family and move my family into the bush, off the grid, and live for $5 a day, and doing things that I love with my family and spend time with my family and go out hunting and fishing. And so he was like, oh, okay, easy choice to make. And then that's when we, got the spark for the idea for the film. And we wanted to follow him on that journey. And that was the sort of spark that created the film. And then we just basically spent a calendar year with him, going up several times every couple of months to see the progress on not only just like the dwelling that he was going to be living in with his family, but it grew into this whole concept of like, what's the philosophy of this village that he wanted to be creating, and building the philosophy of the camp, of this new community, and what was it going to be servicing, who was it for, what were the ideologies built around the camp. So it really became this very philosophical project that was much more than just the sort of 4 walls and a roof kind of dwelling. And so we got to follow him on this journey, and and then that's the sort of the journey of the film is seeing this man and his family in a very unprecedented time, trying to find creative ways to separate himself from capitalism, from colonial racism, from land displacement, and really put a lot of ownership and autonomy back into his own hands and back into the hands of his community by training people how to do this also. Like, he's not just doing this for himself, he's doing this because he wants as many people to do what he's doing as possible. He's not proprietary or precious about, this is not super secret, top secret science tech. He's like, hey, want to learn how to build a traditional log cabin like our ancestors did 100 years ago? Come and learn, and I'll pay you even how to do it. Because he really recognizes that that's a missing piece in healing for our community, is that really meaningful land connection and community connection. So that's the sort of the journey of how the film got made. And it was a huge learning curve to go and do a project of this size, so far away from Vancouver, where I live. A lot of logistics, a lot of COVID logistics, a lot of quarantining, a lot of, all of those things to make it possible. And for people who don't know, in the region of the Arctic where the film was shot, in the Delta, there's a specific dialect of Inuktitut. It's called Inuvialuit, and it's a very endangered language. There's probably less than 150 people who speak it fluently, and the people who do speak it are quite elderly. So it's a very fragile, very priority language that needs a lot of support. So we talked with Kylik, and he's also very passionate about cultural reclamation. So we decided to find a way to make 2 versions of the film, one in sort of the original English that you've seen or will see, and then we also created a fully overdubbed Inuvialuit version. So we worked with his mom, with a bunch of other elders, and we translated everything. And then I'm also a musician, so I do a lot of like recording and music production as well. And so I brought my little mobile studio up to Inuvik, and we recorded all of these speakers. And for the most part, the people who are in the film do their own overdubbing for the most part in their language, in Inuvialuit. And I'm a little farther along on my language learning than Kylik. He's like, oh, I'm just a kindergartner. I'm still learning. I'm so bad at it still, and I'm still learning. So I did Kylik's voice for the Inuvialuit version. And it was just like an amazing, like making the film was this whole, thing. And then doing the language version was this whole other deep, important work that I was able to do. And I was so honored to just be surrounded by elders and language. And I learned so much. And even though it's not my specific dialect, there were so many things that I learned that are so relevant to my language learning. And and then we were able to produce this Inuvialuit version, and I'm pretty sure it's the first film commissioned by CBC to also be fully dubbed in Inuvialuit as well. So we really felt it was important to create and leave with the community a language resource. As a company, we just feel like it's really important that anything that we do isn't this weird extractive, filmmaking model that so many of us have encountered in the past. And so we really wanted to use this as an opportunity and a vehicle for skill development and to leave a real resource with the community that they're asking for. So, it was a huge honor to be able to do that and, find the support to be able to create this film, and that it's, even though it's a hyper specific thing to the Arctic, that, it's finding places where it's resonating with people, across oceans. And now here we are. So that's sort of the journey of the film. And, I wear a lot of different hats, as I mentioned, and as Stephanie mentioned, I'm in a band with my sister called Pilksuk. And we're an Inuit throat singing band, and we blend tradition and technology, and we do a lot of live looping and mixing a very ancient form with new and modern interpretations. And we actually have her in-laws are from Dundee, so she has a strong connection as well over in Scotland, as Stephanie was mentioning, has relatives in Scotland. So Inuit and Scots were everywhere.
Yeah, we get around.
Yeah, we get around. Yeah.
Great. Thank you, Tiffany. I guess I'd like to maybe comment on your film, if that's okay. I actually spent 3 days at COP26 in Glasgow. So I was part of the Inuit Circumpolar Council delegation. And we sat in on the Indigenous youth panels there. And there was so many takeaway messages. And I felt this film encapsulated all of that. So language preservation, giving the land back to Indigenous people, ensuring that Indigenous rights are upheld, including hunting and food sovereignty, passing the knowledge on to the next generation. So I felt I was kind of enlightened to sort of see this whole project unfold.
Oh, thank you.
It was all these things that was talked about in COP26, at COP26 of, this is what we need to happen for the fight against climate change, but also for Indigenous rights. So, wow.
And isn't it interesting that so many of those things are one and the same?
Yeah, exactly. So
2 birds with one stone.
Yeah. So just awesome. I'm curious. I think one of my questions, my additional question, I guess, to this was, obviously with COVID, it's I guess obviously slowed down. I take it now that things have opened up. Is Okpik now fully functioning now as this kind of resource, as you said, as this village? Do we know?
Yeah. So since a lot of the travel restrictions have opened, it is up and running as not only a place where people go out and live full time. Some of the staff and some of Kylik's family live out there full time, but it's also a place where he's bringing tourism. He's bringing people to come and experience the camp and experience this this different, new, and also at the same time very old way of living that's incredibly sustainable, that's very housing secure, Indigenous sovereignty, land use sovereignty. So I think it's offering a complete, intervention into what we think of when we visit Indigenous communities. And then it offers a site to also guests who come to support it. And, they can tip, they can, say that I want to support the language program. Here's how you can support their specific artists. Like, how do I want to support this person's art? So there's like a real interesting model that he's created, and thankfully he's been busy all summer with tours and taking people out fishing and hunting. And now I'm sure things are slowing down a little bit because of the fall, and young Indigo, his daughter, is back at school, and so trying to get it back into that swing of things as well. But yeah, it's up and running. Yeah.
That's great to hear. And lastly, I'm curious about there was a story that was kind of weaved into the film about the orphan. Is that a traditional folklore story? Is it?
Yeah, that's a traditional legend from the area, and also bridges into Inupiaq territory as well. And it's a legend that I heard, and it felt very fitting to weave this traditional legend in with what we were seeing in Kylik's story and his journey, because he is very much the orphan. And in the legend, this orphan who is kind of pushed to the sidelines of his community and fights this demon that has cold blue skin, that has a mouth that is always smiling and will eat and eat and eat and never be full. I was like, oh, dang, that's capitalism. That's white supremacist capitalism that is never satisfied, that will never be like, oh no, that's enough. That was the metaphor for me that really, took this film to a different place, that is the direct thing that Kylik is trying to fight against. And create a different way for his community to live. And to not be like too obvious about it, but that like many of our communities are still in the trance of, like we hear in the legend, that we're serving this master, we're serving this creature that has like kind of all of us under some sort of spell. And so that just really resonated with me. Kylik's journey of trying to, fight this monster that we've created, and provide a different way for his community to live, without constantly on this ever-going dreadmill of, make money to survive and make money or you die. And there's so many other ways to live. So, and that story in Inuvialuit is voiced by his mom and Clara Day. And so it was also just like this nice, family connection to be able to have her voice just really lend this very magic realism to the film through this story.
Great. Thank you. Ganakbuk, thank you for that explanation of that story. That's great. If I could move on, Myna. Hi there. Myna.
Hello.
Hi. Inuktitut, hello. So wow, your journey back to Pangnirtung and Qipisa. Wow, I was really moved by that. I just found your film wonderful. I guess, yeah, first of all, if you wouldn't mind maybe introducing yourself in your own words, a little bit of background about your journey in filmmaking, and yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, thank you.
Udlakut, good morning. Unusakut, good afternoon, because we're in the different time here in Iqaluit. I live in Iqaluit, and I'm originally from Pangnirtung, but I grew up out on the land. When I was 12, I think, we moved to Pangnirtung. So I finally went back. I finally started school in my late teenage life. So the film that we put together we didn't really plan it, but it happened. You know, sometimes when you don't really plan, sometimes when it's supposed to meant to happen, so it happened. So this is my second film that we put together, Ida, Meg Touche, and I. It's called Qipisa. It's the name of the land that I grew up. We were maybe around 30 people living out on the land. We're the last people living very traditionally in Baffin Island. So it's about my journey. That time we started filming it back in 2013. I was seems like there was something missing in my life. You know, seems like I was searching who I am. So I decided to go back home. And Ida and I talked about it, and we ended up, okay, following me with her camera. So it happened. So she followed me, and we went to our camp where I grew up, even though we go there every year, you know. We didn't plan to move to community back in 1983. I think my grandfather started to get old and started to be around, he had to be around nurses. So we didn't plan to move to Pangnirtung. So we ended up living in Pangnirtung, you know, not really planning it that we were going to move. So anyways, that's the story of my life. This was my second film that after when I went to film school in North Bay. My first film, before I met Ida, I worked with wonderful filmmakers. Everybody knows Alethea Anna Coburel. She worked with me, Stacey Arlo McDonald. So I worked really well. We worked on our first film. It's 5 episodes talking about seals, how important it is, animals. So that's my first film that I directed. So this Qipisa, it's talking about my life. And after that, we put together another film. It's called Okpik. It's about tent. You guys gonna be asking me where can we see it? You know, the first film that I directed, 5 episodes, 28 minutes altogether. It's not professionally edited, so my plan is to edit it professionally in the future. It's being digitized, so if we get another funding, that's what I want to do. And the last film that we just put together, we're on editing right now, hunting this August. So yes, so I've been working on film since 2007. And why I wanted to do the film, what in the film you're going to see, talking about my life journey, living in the sod-house, just using the Kylik oil lamp. When I was a child, you know, the Ayalik, what's the word? When you're in the sod-house, like tent, kind of similar to the tent, there would be Ayalik, like magazines, you put them to have more light. So, and I used to imagine when I grew up, I want to be a photographer, you know, I used to imagine all the time, because there was a still picture in our wall from the magazine, and my mother started changing it, because every year we had to change it because it would get yellow from the Kylik, you know, because that was only our heat. And my mother put on top, and my heart was sorry, my heart was broken, you know. It seems like, you know, that's my dream, you know. Then I don't know how old I was, maybe 8. I can't remember when we moved, when we were visiting, because sometimes we used to go to Pangnirtung to get some groceries or whatever. So I saw a TV for the first time. For the first time, I never seen a TV before, you know, Big Bird, Sesame Street. Wow, makes me think, how do they do that? So ever since, I've been wanting to put together, like, wow. That's why I love putting stuff, ideas, work with people. I love trying to put it together. So that's my film that you're gonna see. It's about my life, and everything just happened beautifully. Like we didn't write it in our script. The dancing you're gonna see, the bowhead whale, that people got bowhead. We were rushing that time when my grandmother was still alive. You know, we filmed her because we're talking. So it was beautiful. It just happened, even though we didn't plan it. We were not even thinking about the bowhead whale, you know, dancing. So it just happened beautifully. So that's a film that I hope you guys gonna enjoy it, and talking about my life, personal life, you know. So I'm excited, and thank you for wanting to see the film. I'm so grateful. I didn't even thought about, oh, you know, I was so surprised when I got an email about this film, you know. So I'm so happy and excited to share my personal life. Yes.
Myna, thank you so much for sharing it with us all. I really love the film. I really resonated with the film as someone that's reconnecting with her heritage. Absolutely. The bit that I think I homed in on was that conversation that you had with your, I think it was your elder friend on the sofa.
Yes,
you were
yes,
away.
elder friend, yes. Yes.
And I think your friend was maybe reflecting on your journey a little bit. And I think she was saying, oh, you're in limbo and I'm a bit lost. And it was curious that she said, oh, even though you grew up in your culture, you seem to have lost it a bit. I really resonated with that. Someone that I often feel in limbo between two worlds, you know, my new Inupiaq family in Alaska and being Scottish from here, not knowing my language. So a bit like Kylik, feeling like an infant when it comes to trying to learn Inupiaq, frustratingly, and pronouncing it all wrong. So I really resonated with those themes of feeling a little bit lost and that reconnection. And I think at the end, when you said, does anyone else feel this way? And I was like, yes, I do. I feel, oh my God, yeah. You know, and then me going back to Alaska recently, I was like, oh, I'm understanding my roots a bit more, a bit like you. I was like, oh, I'm beginning to learn about my roots and where my journey's been. So I completely resonated with your film. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah. I guess I'm curious to know now, because that was obviously, as you said, when was this film, 2014?
We started filming in 2013 and it was finished 2016. Yes, okay. It took a long time to finish. Yes, it has lots of story in that film. It has lots of story because when you're a filmmaker, it's sometimes very hard financially, you know, it's so hard. You have to look for money.
Yeah.
So I also travel with the cruise ship every year. So they've been so supportive of my films, you know, with my future ideas with films. So they've been so supportive. So they supported me, like they had to do fundraising for me, and I was short I don't know, maybe $3,000 or something like that. So they collected, so I can able to show it in the theater here in Iqaluit and to make DVDs. So that's how it happened with their help, because people wanted to see it. So it's available for sale too, so I got lots of help. Yeah.
Good. I'm glad. I guess I'm curious to know, in the film you felt at the start, I think you said you felt lost, and I'm just curious to know, having done that filming over those few years and you reflect on it maybe now in 2022, do you feel less lost? Do you feel less in limbo? Do you feel that journey, that process of doing this film, do you think that's kind of helped you in your connection with your heritage and your roots? Yeah.
Very much, very much. Seems like that time I was searching all the time, I wanted to go back home. I was so homesick to Outpost Camp, to Qipisa, I was so homesick. Seems like every time when I move somewhere or something like that, I'm so searching. So after when we filmed that, I never felt like that again, because I wanted to, I guess it was for me, not for the world. So it helped me so much every time when I go home to out on the land, because I used to get so emotional because we go home every year to Qipisa. I used to get emotional, cry, ever since we put that film together. I finally have a peace, It was for me. It wasn't, the idea wasn't for the world to see, it was for me, but we ended up filming it. Yes.
That's wonderful. Yeah, thank you again for sharing a very personal journey. Yeah.
I hope it helped people who is searching for where they came from, that was my journey. So yes, thank you.
It did. For someone that's in this journey, this film completely lit me up, so thank you. I guess I have a final question, Myna. You talked about the dancing and you said that was very spontaneous. The dancing and the music sounded very Scottish. I'm curious to know, I assume there is maybe some Scottish connection, influence. I don't know if you could comment on that for us.
Yes, back then, like my great-grandfather was from Scotland. Like we were just talking about that. We finally connect with our ancestors, I think 5 years ago, through DNA. Is it DNA? So anyways, we always knew my grandfather's father, my mother's grandfather, was from Scotland. So there's always been dance, with the accordion. So I guess it's from the Scottish. So it's in the film too. I always hear we have a similar, even the dancing style, So it's from Scotland. Scottish used to come to Cumberland Sound for bowhead. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
That all makes sense. Great.